มสาระความรู้ก่อนใครได้ที่ RSU WisdomTV ทางระบบทีวีดาวเทียมหรือผ่านแอปพลิเคชัน RSU WisdomTV ดาวน์โหลดแอปพลิเคชันได้ที่ Google Play และ App Store
สวัสดีค่ะขอต้อนรับเข้าสู่รายการ Wisdom Forum เปิดคลังปัญญาพัฒนาความคิดค่ะอยู่กับดิฉันวิศราสายแสวงดำเนินรายการนะคะสำหรับวันนี้เองค่ะก็จะพาคุณผู้ชมนั้นไปชมงานสัมมนาที่มีชื่อว่า AEC Business Forum โดยธนาคารกรุงเทพภายใต้หัวข้อที่มีชื่อว่า 2015 Years of AEC ค่ะส่วนรายละเอียดนั้นจะน่าสนใจแค่ไหนไปชมภาพไฮไลท์กันก่อนค่ะ
We should not just be focused on the revenue side of the game. The revenue side of the game is predetermined, pretty much. We know that there's going to be about $100 trillion worth of goods and services that are going to be consumed and economic activities that are going to be undertaken in the next 20 years within Southeast Asia. But what we need to focus more is on the cost structure. How do we make sure that our cost structure is competitive with respect to ourselves or with respect to the rest of the world?
It doesn't matter whether I'm successful, whether we get relegated. It never really bothers me whether I fail or not. My whole life has been about, I want to try. Because if I try and I succeed, great. If I don't, it doesn't matter. I don't want to sit there at 55 or 60 and say, I wish I did it, because it's too late. So to all of you out there, ASEAN is an amazing dream. It's an amazing opportunity. Don't be afraid. Don't look at the negative. Be positive. Grab it. Live your dream, because you got one shot at it.
Four key aspects, okay, which will be a critical factor for us whether we'll be successful in that particular market that we want to penetrate into. I think I would call it 4P. We have people, we have process, we have partnering, and we have presence.
สำหรับช่วงนี้ค่ะก็พักกันก่อนสักครู่นะคะช่วงหน้าก็กลับมาติดตามกันต่อสำหรับวิสัยทัศน์ของผู้บริหารในบริษัทข้ามชาติต่างๆต่อการรวมตัวกันทางเศรษฐกิจของประเทศอาเซียนค่ะสำหรับในการเปิดประชาคมอาเซียนของเรานะคะก็จะเกิดขึ้นในปลายปีนี้แล้วค่ะฉะนั้นประชาชนทั้ง10ประเทศในอาเซียนต่างก็จำเป็นที่ต้องมีความพร้อมในด้านต่างๆเพราะว่าถ้าพูดถึงขนาดของอาเซียนแล้วก็ถือว่ามีขนาดใหญ่ที่สุดนะคะเป็นอันดับ7ของโลกเลยทีเดียวซึ่งทางด้านของคุณจิตาเวจาวันค่ะท่านก็เป็นประธานและผู้ก่อตั้งบริษัทแอนโคนาก็มองว่าอีกไม่กี่ปีข้างหน้านะคะขนาดของภูมิภาคอาเซียนของเราก็จะขยายตัวเพิ่มขึ้นกลายมาเป็นอันดับที่5ของโลกค่ะ
The topic today is relevant to not only ourselves today, but I think our kids and grandkids in the next probably 30 to 50 years at the very least. I want to talk about two things. The first is the long term. The second is what is in the short term for all of us, not just in Thailand, but the very people in the 10 countries in Southeast Asia. If we take a look at our economic sizing today for Southeast Asia, it's about 2.5 trillion US dollars. We're the 7th largest economy in the world. Collectively for ASEAN, we're the 7th largest in the world. And probably in the next few years, we're going to be the 5th largest economy in the world. We will be able to surpass the economies of France and the UK in a matter of years. And if we were to extrapolate our economy growing at 5% real growth rate per year, nominally probably about 10 to 12%, for 20 years, the accumulation of our GDPs in the next 20 years is probably going to be around 100 trillion US dollars. That's the economic sizing for Southeast Asia in the next 20 years. There's going to be a lot of consumption of goods and services, including airline tickets, including engines that are produced by GEs, including everything else that everybody in this room is involved with. And we've got very strong demographics. We've got a very stable, not so volatile GDP growth trajectory. We've got very low inflation, but beneath all those, I think what we all take for granted, more times than not, is that we've had peace in Southeast Asia. We've had peace and stability since the 60s. Almost 50 years in the making, people take it for granted that we've had very low inflationary pressure. We've had very steady growth of GDP by way of the peace that we've had. This is very different from the Union of the European countries, which are characterized by centuries of history of fighting against each other. And the commonality that the Union of Europe is trying to do is that of customs, immigration, and monetary policy making, but without a collective effort on taking a view on the fiscal space that they have for each other. Whereas ASEAN is a little bit different. It sits on 3 pillars of socio-political security, cultural, and economic. And here we're talking about the economic part of the game, which basically sits on the thesis that we're going to be a collective market, we're going to be a collective production base, and we're going to be very, very competitive vis-a-vis or with respect to the rest of the world. His Excellency Songkit this morning talked a lot about SMEs and how we need to be competitive. I think we should not just be focused on the revenue side of the game. The revenue side of the game is predetermined, pretty much. We know that there's going to be about 100 trillion US dollars worth of goods and services that are going to be consumed and economic activities that are going to be undertaken in the next 20 years within Southeast Asia. But what we need to focus more is on the cost structure. How do we make sure that our cost structure is competitive with respect to ourselves or with respect to the rest of the world? The interest rate for the SMEs in Bangkok and many parts of Thailand is around 7%. And it was earlier noted that in Malaysia it's around 2 to 3%. But let's not forget, in Indonesia, the interest rate environment for the SMEs is between 15 to 30%. So right there at the start, you've got 10 points of advantage with respect to the SME players in Indonesia. The Malaysians may have a few points of advantage with yourself. Now, it is, I think, our duty and our responsibility to make sure that cost keeps coming down. The only way for cost in countries like Indonesia to come down is to make sure that there is a continuing stability. because without that, there's going to be risk premium that's going to be attached by people with capital for the people who need capital. This has worked in the right direction, but it's going to take probably another 5, 10, 15 to 20 years. And rest assured, when the gates open up by December 31st, 2015, I think all of us will be exposed. There is going to be short-term pain. There is going to be people who are going to be more ready than those who are not as ready. There is going to be some people who are going to be more educated than those who are not as educated. There is going to be more people or some people that are going to be at more of a cost advantage as opposed to those that are at a cost disadvantage. But I think the opening up and the exposure for all of us with respect to what could possibly be a short-term pain is a necessity for us to sort of like wake up and get a true taste of reality. And I don't mean it in a bad sense. I mean it more in a good sense, in the sense that I think there are some people in this 10-state domain who take it for granted. They don't know that the gates are not going to open up. They don't know that the gates are going to open up by December 31st of 2015. They don't know that there's going to be a much freer flow of goods, services, capital, and people. I think the smarter guys will probably want to go to Singapore because there's probably going to be more employment for the smarter guys. But there's a limit as to what Singapore can grow to. Indonesia is $1 trillion economy. Singapore is a mere $250 billion economy. And Thailand is a mere $350 to $400 billion economy. So I think we've got to make sure that the flow of goods and capital and services should be of priority vis-a-vis that of the people. But we cannot do too much or enough to make sure that we can stop the flow of the people. Now, this is, I think, an exposure for all of us. The other thing that I'm noticing, this is from my prior experience, a lot of the SMEs in Indonesia, they don't make an effort to basically pay attention to the labeling of their products. When I know there are so many people in Thailand who are learning how to speak Bahasa, who make an effort to put English language as part of their label on their products, even Bahasa, even Arabic, even Chinese, even English. So you will have a competitive advantage over those that are not making that sort of an effort. And your product is going to be selling a lot better and faster. But I think the fact that your product will be selling better and faster will become known to enough people in the region that they will try to emulate whatever you have done or whatever you're doing. So I think this is probably going to go on for maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, which will basically, hopefully, streamline the cost structure and the competitiveness for the very people or the 650 million people in ASEAN. So that in the end, we can go back to the original philosophy and principles of ASEAN that we can be collectively a competitive force with the rest of the world.
ถ้าพูดถึงสายการบินต้นทุนต่ำหรือว่า low cost แล้วค่ะ แอร์ไลน์ AirAsia คงจะเป็นสายการบินอันดับต้นๆที่คุณผู้ชมนั้นนึกถึงนะคะเรามาติดตามกันว่าสายการบินนี้มีแนวคิดเริ่มมาจากอะไรและมีวิสัยทัศน์ในด้านการบริหารและก็การสร้างโอกาสของคุณโทนี่เฟอร์นันเดสประธานและผู้ก่อตั้งบริษัท AirAsia นั้นจะน่าสนใจขนาดไหนเดี๋ยวเราไปติดตามกันค่ะ
Firstly, thank you to Bangkok Bank and especially Kun Tony for inviting me to this conference, which I think is very timely and it's fantastic that more and more companies are talking about something that I've dreamt about for a long time, an ASEAN economic union. I'll take a slightly different approach. I mean, Part Gita is incredibly smart. I can't say I understood everything he said because I didn't go to Harvard Business School. I'm a low-cost man, so...
And he's a lot richer.
I keep my words a little bit simpler, but the message will be about the same. And I will follow my moderator. I will keep to 5 minutes because like AirAsia, we're always on time. Really, I just want to, because there are a lot of SMEs and in all my conferences that I've been to, there's this fear of ASEAN and the fear that multinationals will take over and SMEs will be marginalized. I have a very different view of that. But before I go into that, I mean, AirAsia was very much an SME, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. I see ASEAN as a massive opportunity of 650 million people, a huge market, as what Pak Gita said, 10 countries which are at peace and easy to do business with. In terms of globalization, keeping ASEAN out or putting blocks within ASEAN is probably too late because globalization is here. If you block ASEAN companies, you're not going to block American companies and European companies, etc. So it's better that we get together and build a larger market. 13 years ago, I had this vision of setting up an airline. I came from the music business. Me and Kun Tasapon were selling CDs 13 years ago. Our first signing, it's very different from sitting on this stage, was Ad Carabao, and we signed him by drinking about 15,000 bottles of quite cheap whiskey. So that's how the low-cost angle started. Ad Carabao introduced us to very low-cost whiskey that made us drunk very quickly. And that was where we decided to start the airline. But jokes aside, I bought AirAsia for 25 cents. It was owned by a government-linked company. It had lost about $150 million in 5 years. And we had 2 planes and 200 staff. Really an SME. But what did I see as an opportunity? I saw a fantastic market sitting on our doorstep, which was ASEAN. And if you looked at the connectivity between ASEAN, it was actually very poor. And straight away, we decided to build an airline that would make ASEAN a smaller place. And in the last 13 years, we've gone from 2 planes to 200 planes. Our first year, 13 years ago, we carried 200,000 passengers, and this year we'll carry 56 million passengers. And the majority of those guests have come from within ASEAN, and we've created a market that just wasn't there before. 50% of our routes are routes within ASEAN that just weren't traveled on. In Indonesia, we flew to a place called Bandung, which is actually the home of where ASEAN started. No airline flew there, no one, no Indonesian airline, no one. I flew there because I used to record music there, and it was a great party town, actually. The people there really know how to enjoy themselves. So I said, let's try and fly to Bandung. People thought we were crazy, and over the last few years, we've gone from 1 flight a day to now we have 32 flights a day. So it's all about creating markets, it's all about creating traffic, it's about innovating new ideas. So really, from AirAsia, from our humble beginnings to where we are now, we saw ASEAN as a huge opportunity. And that's what I implore to all of you in the SMEs and even bigger companies, that there's a fantastic market out there that's really sitting on your doorstep. Everyone thinks of China and India, but those are, higher entry barriers and higher cost. You're sitting on a market of 650 million, and I'm beginning to see more Thai companies and more Indonesian companies and more Malaysian companies looking at this market that's right next door. We've created a tourism market and an airline market that wasn't there. So 2 things I just want to focus on. before I finish with regards to ASEAN is the biggest asset we have is our people. The energy, the drive, the ability to get things done. If you look at AirAsia Indonesia, AirAsia Malaysia, Philippines, it's all driven by locals. And, you know, you couldn't go from 2 planes to 200 planes without amazing talent. And we found talent all over the place. So there's always, your biggest asset are the people in your company and allowing them to innovate, allowing them to be the best, and allowing them to push the barriers. That's what we've been good at. We've been good at turning raw diamonds into diamonds. You know, we have a fantastic story here in Thailand. We had a cabin crew who one day called Contespon and said, I want to be a pilot. And in AirAsia, we don't care whether you left school at 12 or you went to Harvard Business School. As long as you have a brain and you want to use it, we will maximize it. Because some people are lucky, they've had money to go to university. There are a lot of much smarter kids in ASEAN who never had the ability to go to universities. So our job has been to find talent and to grow that talent. And so this girl, who was very smart, she took her exams and became a pilot. She passed first time, along with loads of others. And then she called up and says, you know, everyone says I'm very beautiful. Can I take part in Miss Thailand? And I said, sure, provided if you win, you get to reuse your photograph for the rest of your life for free. And she took part in Miss Thailand, and she won Miss Thailand. And now she's just become a captain in Thai AirAsia. So we're the only airline in the world with a Miss Thailand flying for them. So beat that, Singapore Airlines. But the reality is, with the people and the organization in your company, the market that you have sitting on your doorstep, it's amazing what you can do. Branding is also something Gita started to talk about, which I think is important for Thai businessmen to focus on. Many times when you're launching a product, you don't focus on marketing the product. That is something we have spent a lot of money on, and you don't necessarily see the results straight away. So I really implore all of you who are setting out in your businesses to focus on your brand and to put money behind your brand. The results aren't overnight, but they're there. You know, we sponsored Manchester United when we only had 7 planes. Very painful because I hate that football club. But then you have to be a prostitute once in a while and do things you would never do. We sponsor the referees, etc. And that has given us the ability to build our brand. I just want to add, by the way, the club I own is Queen's Park Rangers. We're 3rd from bottom, but we're ahead of Leicester City, which is important to note. So I think please put money behind your brand and market yourselves, because I think that's very important in building up. And it's difficult to keep your brand focused. It's actually easier for an American company coming into ASEAN. You know, McDonald's comes. But when an ASEAN company goes to a different part of ASEAN, people will say, change it, do this differently, etc. And I'll tell you a funny story. When we first came to Thailand, you know, the pilots refused to go in the same bus as the cabin crew. In Malaysia, it's the other way around. The pilots refuse to go in the bus unless the cabin crew are there. And I won't tell you what the Indonesians want. So, you know, even small things like that, we had to really work hard to have a standardized brand. So again, as you expand, make sure you focus on one brand. And the very last thing, as Kuntoni told me, there are many aspiring businessmen and many entrepreneurs here, which I just want to tell you that dreams are possible and that you can achieve anything you want to do if you put your mind to it. You know, at 12 years old, my parents sent me to boarding school in England, which was kind of a weird experience. I remember arriving in London. I'd never been out of Malaysia. And I arrived in England, and I thought, wow, everyone's white. You know, I'd never seen so many white people before. I told my daughter, you have no such problem now, because when you arrive in England, everyone's Indian. So she'll feel quite at home. But, you know, I had a great time there, but we were given a box to kind of put our lives possessions into this box. And my best friend from school called me up and he said, "Hey, I found your tuck box. Can I send it to your house?" I said, "Yeah, send it over." It was 30 years since I'd seen this box. And it arrived on my door, and there were 3 stickers. And it was very emotional for me when I saw these stickers, because I'd put these stickers when I was 12 years old, and they were my dreams. On the far left was a Qantas airline sticker, because I always wanted to start an airline. It was always from a young age. I don't know why, but I always had the vision of starting an airline. And in the middle was a Formula One team called Williams, because I love motor racing and I wanted to own a Formula One team. And on the right-hand side was a football club called West Ham United, which is a club I used to support. And I thought to myself, wow, dreams really do come true. These were my dreams when I was a 12-year-old, and now I'm 50. I've kind of a young 50-year-old. I have achieved a lot of what I dreamt about. And I was sitting there at the last football game, Man City versus QPR. One of us went down and one of us became champions. And I was imagining to myself, and I thought, wow, I used to listen to football on the radio, and here I am watching it live. It doesn't matter whether I'm successful, whether we get relegated. It never really bothers me whether I fail or not. My whole life has been about, I want to try. Because if I try and I succeed, great. If I don't, it doesn't matter. I don't want to sit there at 55 or 60 and say, I wish I did it, because it's too late. So to all of you out there, ASEAN is an amazing dream. It's an amazing opportunity. Don't be afraid. Don't look at the negative. Be positive. Grab it. Live your dream, because you got one shot at it. And with Bangkok Bank, I'm sure they'll give you the money to live your dream. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
หลังจากที่ไปดูมุมมองของชาวต่างชาติแล้วนะคะก็มาดูมุมมองของคนไทยกันบ้างค่ะอย่างคุณโกวิทคันทัพพัสระค่ะท่านก็เป็นประธานและก็หัวหน้าเจ้าหน้าที่จากบริษัท GE ประเทศไทยสปป.ลาวเมียนมาก็มีมุมมองนะคะในเรื่องของการดำเนินการธุรกิจต่างๆนั้นจะประสบความสำเร็จได้ต้องมีอยู่4ปัจจัยหลักๆด้วยกันก็คือ people partnering process และก็ present ค่ะส่วนรายละเอียดนั้นจะเป็นอย่างไรไปติดตามกันเลยค่ะ
I just want to share a different perspective coming from a multinational company like GE, okay? I think GE brand from a public or consumer point of view may not be really a consumer brand because we are having a very small business in the consumer side. I mean, when people think about GE, people think about appliance, maybe a bit of lighting because we are not big here in Asia or ASEAN for lighting. But this basically, for us, it's more of a US business, not really a global business. But from a global business perspective, we are more in an infrastructure business, which is where the countries and ASEAN region are really needed to move itself into a more developing countries and also be able to compete with the Western world. Okay, so from that perspective, I think GE we are $150 billion company, mainly in the infrastructure and technology side. Okay, and in ASEAN we are about $5 billion US dollars company, and we have about 7,500 employees in ASEAN. Okay. And coming down to Thailand, we are here for so many years. I think since I joined GE 21 years ago, we already exist, so we are here more than 25 years. But I think the country is start using our technology for more than 50 years, using our gas turbine, okay, using our locomotive. So Basically, this 150 billion is all infrastructure, namely power and water. We do power generation, oil and gas. We help oil and gas company doing the exploration. We have energy management, helping industrial company to manage the efficiency of their plant. We are in the healthcare business. We are in aviation, transportation, lighting, and also financial service. I want to set the stage. I mean, from a multinational perspective, what value GE bring to the region, to the countries, to the company, and to people in this region. Okay, when GE coming into the region or countries, we, as a company, we look into providing efficient and effective technology solution to company, to state-owned enterprises, and to government to address their infrastructure need. Okay, and we also want to make sure that the technology, product, and service that we offer would be beneficial and accessible to people. I can give you an example. I mean, in Indonesia, we do a lot of, we call it value healthcare, where we bring in some handheld device to help a midwife in Indonesia to go in the remote area so they can help the patient in terms of using the handheld device, the ultrasound handheld device for looking at maybe a mother who is pregnant, look at the stage of the baby, so they can send the information to the bigger hospital or to the doctor to view. So those are some of the key things that we're trying to bring the affordable, quality healthcare to the mass. That's what we call some of the things that we do for accessible to all the public. And I think what we look into the value that we bring is also we help the countries, the company into the capacity or capability building. I think we work closely with AirAsia in the early days. You know, at some stage, Tony was sharing his experience. He has to go to our headquarters to beg GE to support him. But now I think he turned
Now
the
they
table.
have to beg me.
Now we have to go and beg Tony, give us the order. Okay, so I think that's how we help the entrepreneurs, to be successful. And I think we're thankful for also his support to, choosing our product. On top of that, I think we can bring in our leaderships, how we build, people. I think people, as Tony mentioned, is really the key asset for any organization or any countries as well. So I think we really focus on the importance of people and we invest in people, not only GE people, because we believe in also share this with government, the countries, and also our customers as well. And we also bringing in financing, airlines, low-cost airline, many of them, and financing to countries like Myanmar, countries like Vietnam as well. So those countries that need financing, we also bring financing aspect to help them, to make sure that we provide the total solution, not just a product. And I think localization is very important. I think for SME or any company want to do business in other countries, I think we need to have local people. We have to understand the local context of it, laws, regulation, everything. So that's something that as a GE, as a company, we want to make sure we have local leaders and we localize where we have business. And we bring investment aspect. In all ASEAN countries, we have investment in different aspects. Like Vietnam, we have manufacturing. We used to have a big manufacturing base in Thailand, but we eventually sold a lot of those business, so we are no longer in those business. So right now, and we also invest in Bay Bank in Thailand. We invest in the Water Research Center in Singapore. We invest in the repair of the engine in Malaysia. So I think we also bring in investment, job, and also technology transfer and know-how to to all the countries that we operate in as well. I think if I touch on the aspect of what does the country need to do to attract, multinational company like GE. When we go in any countries, being like Vietnam or Myanmar, we look into a few aspects, of course, right? I think market itself is something that any company would have to do. I mean, the size of the market, what their need is, and do we have the products, service, and solution to meet the market needs? Is the market is big enough? Is the market is in a growing mode? So those are a basic aspect where every company going into a new countries or new territory need to make an assessment, right? On top of that, I think as Kun Somkit has already mentioned, I think we have to prepare the country as far as government policy, and also all the company in the country got to prepare themselves to be ready. I think we look into socio-economics and political aspect, whether we have stable aspect of all this environment, okay? And another key and very important is the transparency, right? Kun Somkit was talking about competitiveness of the country, but I think for GE, we look into, whether the good governance, transparency, compliance, those are something that is in our company DNA, and we want to make sure that we bring all the cleanliness and transparency into any transaction that we do in any countries that we do business. And lastly, I think it's regarding the regulatory environment. Okay, we have to have, as Dr. Somkit mentioned, we have to make it, very convenient for any business to do and invest in that particular country. So the law got to support it. So those are a number of aspects that what GE normally would look into. Once we are in the country, I think lastly, this is what I want to touch on. I think GE would look into 4 key aspects, okay, which will be a critical factor for us whether we'll be successful in that particular market that we want to penetrate into. I think I would call it 4P. I think the first one, which Antonio touched on, is people. Make sure that we have to have the right people. People have the right skill set, and have right the mindset as well. People is critical asset to GE and to any company. And we need to have partnering. Partnering can be the government, can be companies, can be our partners who we joint venture with, our customers. So those are things that would also determine the success. And we need to have the process, the right process whereby we empower the local people, the local team to make decisions, but we have to make sure that all the process in making decision, in making the decision, we do it right, and it's fall under the regulatories, the compliance, and and good governance. And the last aspect of it is about we have people, we have process, we have partnering, and we have presence. Presence, of course. I mean, you can't fly people in and out just to do business in that country. You have to have the footprint, you have to have scale. So those are the 4 key things that we look into, critical factors or critical mass to be able to be successful in those, in any country that we do business. Just want to just stop there.
สำหรับการเปิดประชาคมอาเซียนที่จะเกิดขึ้นในปลายปีนี้ค่ะท่านก็ควรที่จะมองหาช่องว่างของการตลาดและก็โอกาสที่จะทำธุรกิจและก็ต้องรีบลงมือทำค่ะถ้าเรามัวแต่กลัวนะคะแล้วก็ไม่ได้เริ่มค่ะก็อาจจะไม่มีความสำเร็จที่จะมาถึงก็ได้และนี่ก็คือมุมมองและก็วิสัยทัศน์ของผู้บริหารข้ามชาติที่มองต่อเศรษฐกิจอาเซียนที่จะเปิดขึ้นในปลายปีนี้ค่ะและนี่ก็คือทั้งหมดของ Wisdom Forum ขอบคุณนะคะสำหรับการติดตามชมสำหรับวันนี้สวัสดีค่ะ